Thank you so much for coming out today to New Canaan Library's Publisher Summer Book Buzz. I'm Laura Woodward Caterers, Reader Advisor at New Canaan Library. I welcome you. You are going to have a fabulous night, especially if you are a very avid reader or if you are a book group leader that needs to choose books for your next book read. I've brought 7 publishers here for us tonight: Simon & Schuster, Penguin Random House, Harper Collins, Workman Publishing, Hachette Book Group, W.W. Norton Company, and MacMillan. And they are all here ready with a whole slew of books to for you to enjoy. And I sent earlier today a little packet to all of you. The publishers here have sent me PDFs of the books that they are going to talk about, and I sent that all out to you. So I hope that you've had time to possibly print those out. You can have them right in front of you, and as they go through the books that they talk about, you can write all over that and be able to select your books from there. Our first person to speak tonight is Melissa Croce. She is with Simon & Schuster, and I'm going to ask each publisher what is their favorite book when they were a child and why. So, Melissa, please tell me your favorite.
My favorite. Hi, everyone. Thanks for being here tonight. My favorite book as a child was Elle Enchanted by Gail Carson Levine. This is my childhood copy. It is literally held together with tape. It's very well loved. I've had it for 20 years now. I was a reader before I read this book, but I don't think I had ever loved a book as much as I loved this one. And a big shout out to my elementary school librarian, who was the one who recommended it to me. So, and a big thank you to all the librarians and book lovers who are here tonight. I will be sharing some fun summer reads that have already come out that you can read right now, some that will be coming out later this season to look forward to, and a little sneak peek to some fall titles as well. So first up, we have Chef's Kiss by TJ Alexander. This one is for anyone who is a fan of Bon Appetit's Test Kitchen series. It features Simone, who is a type A pastry expert with a dream job at The Discerning Chef, which is a cookbook publisher in New York City, a fictitious one. All she wants to do is create the perfect loaf of sourdough, don't we all, and develop recipes. But when The Discerning Chef decides to start creating videos, Simone is thrust into the spotlight, and she's not very good at being in it. To make matters worse, she has to deal with Ray, the new test kitchen manager, whose overly cheerful personality is the oil to Simone's water. When Ray accidentally becomes a viral YouTube sensation, their editor pairs the thriving Ray up with the struggling Simone. But the more they work together, the more Simone realizes that her heart may be softening like butter for Ray. Things get even more complicated when Ray comes out as non-binary to mixed reactions, and Simone must choose between the career she fought so hard for and the person who just might take the cake and her heart. From fan favorites, Christina Lauren comes Something Wilder. Growing up the daughter of notorious treasure hunter and absentee father Duke Wilder left Lily without much patience for the so-called profession or much money in the bank. But resourceful Lily now uses Duke's coveted hand-drawn maps to guide tourists on fake treasure hunts throughout the Red Rock Canyons of Utah. It pays the bills, but there is no amount of money worth having to deal with the only man she's ever loved walking back into her life ready to be one of those tourists. Said man, Leo Grady, wants nothing more than to reconnect, but unfortunately for him, Lily is all business, drawing a clear line in the sand. They are never getting back together, like ever. But when the trip goes horribly and hilariously wrong, the group wonders if maybe the legend of the hidden treasure wasn't a gimmick after all. There is a chance to right the wrongs of Duke's past and their own, but only if they can confront their history and work together. If you enjoyed the movies The Lost City or Romancing the Stone, you will absolutely love this book. I read it in one sitting. Something Wilder is out now. If you love beach reads that have the themes of coming of age and family drama, might I recommend Katie Rune's The Shore. Brian and Margot Dunn live year-round in Seaside, which is steps away from a bustling boardwalk with their daughters, Liz and Evie. But tragedy strikes when Brian develops a brain tumor and he transforms into a bizarre, erratic version of himself. Everyone handles this drastic change very differently. Older daughter Liz seeks out summer adventure and flirts with a guy she should know better than to pursue. Younger daughter Evie works in a candy shop, falls in love with her friend Olivia, and secretly adopts the persona of a middle-aged mom in an online support group of all things, where she discovers her own mother's most vulnerable confessions. Meanwhile, Margot, the mother, faces an impossible choice driven by grief, impulse, and the ways that small town and seaside have shaped her. Should she and her family leave their beloved hometown behind forever? The Shore is a powerful, heartbreaking, and ultimately uplifting novel infused with humor about young women finding sisterhood, friendship, and love in a time of crisis, and it is out now. Next is Deep Water by Emma Bamford. When a Navy vessel comes across a yacht in distress in the middle of the Indian Ocean, the captain orders his ship to rush to their aid. On board the yacht is a British couple, a horribly injured man and his traumatized wife, who breathlessly confesses, "It's all my fault. I killed them." Just what any captain wants to hear. Recounting their story, the captain soon learns that months earlier, the couple spent all their savings on a yacht, full of excitement for exploring the world together. Through word of mouth, they learned of a tiny, isolated island full of unspoiled beaches. But when they arrived, they discovered that they were not the only visitors and became entangled in a motley crew of expat sailors. Soon, this dream turns into a nightmare. Now it's up to the captain to determine just how much truth there is in this alarming tale, but he doesn't have a lot of time to make up his mind. When his crew makes a shocking discovery, he realizes that if he doesn't act quickly, they could all fall under the dark spell of the island. Deep Water is out now. Now for some books that are coming up this summer. For something completely different, we have Tracy Flick Can't Win by Tom Perrotta. Tracy Flick, the beloved heroine of the book and eponymous movie Election, is a hardworking assistant principal at a public high school. Still ambitious, but feeling a little stuck and underappreciated in her midlife, Tracy gets a jolt of good news when the longtime principal abruptly announces his retirement. Energized by the prospect of a long overdue promotion, Tracy throws herself into her work with renewed zeal while also managing her personal life. A 10-year-old daughter, a needy boyfriend, and a burgeoning meditation practice. It's not going very well. But nothing ever comes easily to Tracy Flick, no matter how diligent or qualified she happens to be. Flick fans and newcomers alike will love this sharp, darkly comic, and pitch-perfect novel chronicling the second act of one of the most memorable characters of our time, and it comes out next week. This is the highly anticipated The It Girl by Ruth Ware. April Clark Cliveden was the first person that Hannah Jones met at Oxford. The ultimate it girl, April quickly pulled Hannah into her dazzling orbit. Together, they developed a group of devoted and inseparable friends, including Will, Hugh, Ryan, and Emily during their first term. But by the end of their second term, April was dead. Now, a decade later, Hannah has moved on. She and Will are expecting their first child together, and the man convicted of killing April, former Oxford porter John Neville, has died in prison. Immersed in the present, Hannah's past comes crashing back when a young journalist comes knocking and presents new evidence that John Neville might have been innocent all along. As Hannah reconnects with old friends and delves deeper into the mystery of April's death, she realizes that the friends that she thought she knew all have something to hide, including a murder. The It Girl will be out on July 12th. Next is The Many Daughters of Afong Moy by Jamie Ford, the best-selling author of Hotel on the Corner of Bitter and Sweet. Poet laureate Dorothy Moy's mental health struggles have long plagued her life. Fearing that her young daughter will suffer as she has, Dorothy resorts to a more radical treatment than the therapies and failed medications of her past. A treatment that believes that, like eye color, allergies, and personality traits, people can inherit trauma from their family, thus affecting their current choices and behaviors. Through these vivid sessions, Dorothy connects with several generations of her female ancestors. Afong Moy, the first Chinese woman to set foot in America, Lai King Moy, a girl quarantined in San Francisco during a plague epidemic, Fei Moy, a nurse in China serving with the Flying Tigers, Zoe Moy, a student in England at a famous school with no rules, and Greta Moy, a tech executive with a unique dating app idea. All of these ancestors accumulated their own tragic heartbreak. The one through line in their stories is the connection they shared and lost with the respective love of their lives. As painful recollections affect her present life, Dorothy must find a way to heal these broken bonds of the past if she and her daughter are able to move forward in peace. The Many Daughters is out on August 2nd. And now for a couple of fall titles. Everybody in Orange County's Little Saigon knew that Duong sisters were cursed. It started with their ancestor Owen, who dared to leave her marriage for true love, an act that somehow enraged a witch so much that she cursed Owen and her descendants so that they would never find love or happiness, very harsh, and that they would always give birth to daughters, but never sons. Owen's current descendant, Mai Win, knows this curse very well. She is divorced, and after an explosive disagreement a decade ago, she is estranged from her younger sisters, Min and Kyan, and it seems like this pattern will continue for Mai's 3 adult daughters who are successful in their careers, but not in their love lives. Desperate for guidance, she consults Auntie Hua, her trusted psychic in Hawaii, who delivers an unexpected prediction. This year, the family will witness a marriage, a funeral, and the birth of a son. This prophecy will reunite estranged mothers, daughters, aunts, and cousins, for better or for worse. A multi-narrative novel brimming with levity and candor, The Fortunes of Jaded Women by Carolyn Wynn is about mourning, meddling, celebrating, and healing together as a family, and it is out on September 6th. And lastly, the author of Queenie is back with People Person. If you could choose your family, you would never choose the Penningtons. Dimple Pennington knows of her half-siblings, but she doesn't really know them. They're just 5 people who don't have anything in common except for faint memories of being driven through Brixton in their dad's gold Jeep and the abandonment issues they all share. She has bigger things to think about than her siblings. She is 30 and her life is not really going anywhere. She's an aspiring lifestyle influencer with a boyfriend who sucks, and her life has basically shrunk down to the size of her phone screen. Despite a small but loyal following, she has never felt more alone in her life. That is, until a dramatic event brings her half-siblings crashing back into her life, and when they're forced to reconnect with their father, things get even more complicated. From Candice Carty Williams, People Person is a vibrant and charming celebration of discovering family as an adult. That is it for me. You can find these titles at your local library, bookstore, or for the titles that are not out yet, on NetGalley or Edelweiss. Check us out online at simonandschuster.net for more recommendations, as well as our social media accounts. Thank you for having me, everyone.
All right, so next up is Elizabeth Fabian with Penguin Random House. Okay, Elizabeth, hello.
Hi.
Welcome to the Book Buzz. I am wondering, what is your favorite childhood book and why?
Well, I'm going to thank you for having me. It's a particular thrill for me to talk to New Canaan residents tonight because I moved with my family to New Canaan about 2 years ago, and I love it here. We all do, and most weekends and evenings, you can probably find us at the Mead Park baseball fields or at the library checking out books for our 2 young boys to keep them interested and occupied. So please say hello if you see me. We're just starting to meet people now. But anyway, so one of the books, I loved many books as a child. One of the ones I loved the most and I think about all the time is a book called Half Magic by Edward Eager. It's about children who find a magic coin and start to make wishes, but the wishes only come half true. I think about it all the time, and I've loved it for many, many years. But it's been a real adventure also discovering books with my 3 boys over the years, new books like Library Lion, the Magic Treehouse series, the Bad Guys series, and most recently the Spy School series with the nod to Nathan Hale. So anyway, I am very excited to talk to you about wonderful beach reads and summer reads for this summer, and maybe some of you will find your new favorite author too. I will start out with All the Lights Above Us, inspired by The Women of D-Day by M.B. Henry. This is a debut novel. It's a thought-provoking historical fiction for any of you readers who read Kate Quinn or Pam Jenoff. And it starts out on what history will call D-Day. There are 5 unforgettable women from all walks of life, and they are going to fight to survive this most terrifying night of their lives. There's the American expatriate, Mildred. She's better known as Axis Sally, and she has a thriving career as a Nazi radio propagandist, but her conscience is starting to haunt her. Across the English Channel, there is a young medical volunteer named Theta, and she's pushed to her limit as shiploads of young casualties dock in Portsmouth. Intrepid Flora aids the French resistance while she seeks her missing parents. Iron-willed Amelia has climbed the Gestapo ranks, but now she's bent on betraying them. And finally, Adelaide's faith is shaken when she's forced to quarter German soldiers. This is a book that's told in alternating points of view as each woman fights for her own survival as well as for the survival of her country during one of the most pivotal nights in history. Next is This Time Tomorrow by Emma Straub, the best-selling author of The Vacationers and All Adults Here. If you haven't read Emma before, you're in for such a treat. She is just lovely as a person. Her books are filled with such charm and emotion, and this one is no different. This Time Tomorrow, she offers a moving father-daughter story and a really playful twist on the idea of time travel. So on the eve of her 40th birthday, Alice's life isn't terrible. She likes her job, even though it's not exactly what she wanted to do. She's happy with her apartment and her romantic status, and she adores her lifelong best friend, her dad. But her father is ailing, and it's starting to feel like something is missing. But when she wakes up the next morning, she finds herself back in 1996, reliving her 16th birthday. And it isn't just her adolescent body that shocks her or seeing her high school crush. It's her dad. He's the vital, charming 40-something and she's reunited with him. And now she's armed with the perspective of her own life and his, and past events start to take on new meaning. She's forced to ask herself a question. Is there anything she would change if she could? This Time Tomorrow captures the love between parents and children, and it is completely nostalgic for the 1990s in all the very best ways. Next is The Lifestyle. It is a fun, light, and sexy romantic comedy to throw in your beach tote, and it is a contemporary take on Jane Austen's Emma. So Georgina Wagman has it all. A great marriage, a great job at a law firm, and great friends. Everything's perfect. Well, until she walks in on her husband Nathan in a compromising position with a junior associate. Georgina has a moment of crisis. But divorce is not in her 5-year plan, so she comes up with an idea to save her marriage and recapture the spark. She and Nathan are going to become swingers. Now, I'm not sure what Jane Austen would think of the whole swinging part, but let's just go with it for a second. Georgina's friends Felix and Nora decide to go along for the ride, have issues in their own marriages, and Georgina couldn't be happier because she thinks Felix and Nora are actually supposed to be with each other, and what better place to set them up than a swingers party. Her plan is foolproof until she runs into her college ex. And when they reconnect, she'll find herself torn between her head and her heart, and her happiness hanging in balance. This is heartwarming, it's hilarious, it's outrageously fun for summer, and it deals with all the complexities of the heart. And next is The Summer Friend by Charles McGrath. This is for fans who love Richard Russo or J. Courtney Sullivan. And Charles McGrath, as some of you may know, is the former editor of the New York Times Book Review. This book is alive with the intoxicating magic of summer here in New England. And it looks back at all the sun-soaked days and his family and his youth, and particularly a bond made in a time when he thought that he was beyond making new friends. It begins with, it was early evening, and a new acquaintance to retrieve his daughter from a play date, but instead of driving in a minivan, he arrived by water and tacked his sailboat in the marsh and threw a rope overboard. And how could anyone resist being friends with him like that? So over the course of this rich memoir, McGrath recalls all of the pleasantries of summer's past, like amateur lobstering, 9-hole golf, family charades, and friendship that was forged with two men from very different backgrounds who came together late in life. Richard Russo has a beautiful quote about this book. He says, "To read Chip McGrath's gentle, elegant memoir is to lose yourself in your own past summers, especially the ones of your youth, when you imagine there would be an infinite number of them and also friends to share them with, and that both turn out to be numbered makes this book positively ache with beauty and loss." It's just, it's wonderful. And then to switch gears quite a bit, there is The Beach Trap next, a novel about two best friends who are torn apart by a life-altering secret and only have one summer to set the record straight. So when they were 12, Kate Steiner and Blake O'Neill meet at Camp Chickasaw. They have an instant connection, but everything falls apart when they learn that they're not just best friends, but they're actually half-sisters. They're confused, they feel betrayed, and they cut off all contact. But 15 years later, when their father dies suddenly, Kat and Blake discover that he's left them a joint inheritance, the family beach house in Destin, Florida. So the sisters reluctantly join forces to renovate the house, but as the week passes, the two women realize the most difficult project that they face this summer will be to come to grips with this shared past and learn how to really become the sisters they're meant to be. Next is Flying Solo. It is a charming new novel about a woman's journey of self-discovery and new love from Linda Holmes, who some of you may know as NPR's Pop Culture Happy Hour podcast host, and also the best-selling author of Evie Drake Starts Over. So smarting from her recently canceled wedding and about to turn 40, Lori Sasselin returns to her Maine hometown to handle the estate of her great aunt Dot, a spirited adventurer who lived to be 93. And alongside all the boxes of Polaroids and pottery, she finds a mysterious wooden duck in the cedar chest. Her curiosity is piqued, especially when she finds a love letter to her never married Aunt Dot, which ends with the line, "And anyway, if you're ever desperate, there are always ducks, darling." But soon after this, the duck disappears under suspicious circumstances, and suddenly Lori finds herself swept in a righteous caper that has her negotiating with antique dealers and con artists, and going on after-hours dates at the local library, and reconnecting with her oldest friend and her first love. Lori is a heroine that you will root for from page 1, and Flying Solo is a beautiful story about growing up, coming home, and learning to take life on your own terms. Then there is Grown Ups by Marie Aubert. It is a debut from one of Norway's rising stars, and it's a whip-smart novel about modern motherhood and sibling rivalry. So Ida is 40, she's an architect, she's single, and she's starting to panic. She's navigating Tinder and contemplating freezing her eggs. She's terrified that time has passed her by without her having realized it's happened, and all she sees when she looks around are other people's children everywhere. Now she is stuck in the idyllic Norwegian countryside to celebrate her mother's 65th birthday, and she finds herself regressing. She's fighting with her younger sister, Marta. She's flirting with her sister's husband. But when some wonderful news from Marta heightens the tensions further, she is forced to mark new milestones in her own life on her own. This is quintessential Scandinavian fiction, which combines like cringeworthy comedy with moments of heartbreak and insight about family life. So a great new author to learn about. And I'll round it out with The Daughter of Dr. Moreau by Silvia Moreno Garcia, who is the best-selling author of Mexican Gothic and Velvet Was the Night. Moreno Garcia's newest novel is a dreamy reimagining of the island of Dr. Moreau, set against the backdrop of 19th century Mexico. Carlotta Moreau is the only daughter of a researcher who is either a genius or a madman. Montgomery Lawton is an outcast who assists Dr. Moreau with his experiments. The hybrid of Dr. Lloyd, a motley group of part human, part animal monstrosities, and all of them live in a perfectly balanced static world, but that is jolted by the abrupt arrival of Eduardo Lizalde, the charming and careless son of Dr. Moreau's patron, and he unwittingly begins a dangerous chain reaction. The Daughter of Dr. Moreau is both dazzling historical fiction and a daring science fiction journey. And I just have to get one more plug in here, even though it's not on the screen. If any of you are fans of Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid, her newest novel will be coming in late August. It is called Carrie Soto is Back, and it is about a retired tennis star who can't help but want to make a comeback. It is great. Taylor Jenkins Reid is great, and I hope you will check that out too. That's coming in late August of this year. Thank you so much for your time. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for listening. If you want to learn any more about the books that we have coming out or book club reads, please feel free to reach us at borrowreadrepeat.com. Sign up for our e-newsletter, and I'm always happy to help. Thanks so much for having me.
Thanks very much, Elizabeth. Is that email or that website something that is on the handout that you gave?
Yes,
Okay,
yes, the website's on the handout. Yep.
Great. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have is Annie Mazes. Annie Mazes. No, excuse me, not Annie Mazes. I'm sorry. It's Lainey Mays. Lainey Mays.
It's close.
Hi. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
So Lainey is from Harper Collins. And Lainey, I'd like to know, what was your favorite childhood story and why?
Oh, like in middle school, someone handed me Anne of Green Gables, and I just had to know everything about that. And it's all because of a librarian that I got all of the other ones. So like Melissa's story. And yeah, I have like 5 different versions in my small apartment. So that's my favorite book. And thank you so much for having all of us. I'm very excited to be here, and I'm excited to tell you about some books. So let's get going. And if any of these scream out to anyone, please put it in the chat. I'd love to know what is of interest. The first one, so the first 5 are out now, so you can get them. I didn't want to bury the lead. So we have Take Your Breath Away by Linwood Barclay. This is getting a lot of great reviews. It's recently on sale. And so it's about this man, Andrew Mason. One weekend he was on a fishing trip and his wife Bree vanished without a trace, and everyone in town, most people think, you know, the husband did it, and this is no different. So they say that he did it, but the police can never really build a strong case. And he's at rock bottom, and he's drinking too much, and he almost loses his business, and everyone's avoiding him, and so he just has to get out. He has to make some changes. And so 6 years later, he's put his life together. He's sold the house. He's moved away, has a new partner. Life is pretty good. But one day a woman shows up at his old address screaming, "Where's my house? What happened to my house?" And then just as suddenly as she appeared, the woman disappears again. And she does look a lot like Bree, the woman who went missing. So the police are notified and skepticism in the town returns. And now, is she alive? Where's she been? Is it his guilty conscience? Like, it's a wild ride. So I hope you check that out if you like a good thriller. And next is Finding Me by Viola Davis. So this is someone who doesn't need an introduction, but we're very excited to have the acclaimed actress and producer Viola Davis on our list. Her memoir, Finding Me, hit the New York Times list very quickly. This is her story from Rhode Island to New York City and beyond. She had a really difficult childhood, which she doesn't always talk about, but she does in the book. And it's a journey for her to find her purpose and her voice in a world that wasn't really listening to her. And in an interview, she said that she kind of questioned a lot after she, you know, made it and didn't really like, what now? And so now she looks and reflects and it's about finding out who you are. It dives deep and it's really inspiring, and it's along the works like with Michelle Obama's Becoming. It's going to be a great and important part of our history that's happening right now. It's perspective on lived experiences, and it's also for any generation. It's not the, you know, gossip celebrity book, but a story of a strong Black woman who defied the odds and made it in Hollywood. So next we have another memoir, which is very special. This is, when I found out we were doing this book, and I knew exactly who it was. I fell in love easily with Lily, the 98-year-old Auschwitz survivor who answered questions posed by her 17-year-old great-grandson, Dov, on TikTok. So I knew about them, and she didn't sugarcoat anything. There was pain in her voice and there was resilience, but she was really open. And this is her memoir. So they've kind of gotten some traction on TikTok, and now she's written this memoir about her time there, but also just about her life in general. She has, I think, 10 kids and so many great grandkids. And so there's photos in it. And she's a founding member of the Holocaust Survivor Center and was awarded the British Empire Medal for services to Holocaust education. So this is really, really wonderful to keep there, because it's this piece of history that she's recording for memory. And it hit the New York Times list really quickly too. So I'm very happy that she's getting to see it. And the next is Mystique Island by Sarah McCoy. This is my kindred spirit. Speaking of Anne of Green Gables, she wrote Marilla of Green Gables, which is kind of a prequel of sorts. And this is her new novel, Mystique Island. It's set in the 70s in a private island called Mystique in the Caribbean. Told by Willie Mae, who's this former beauty queen from Texas, and she's divorced now and her husband's passed away, and she's got kids in England there she lives, but she just needs to get away. She didn't really fit in. So she moves to Mystique, and this is the vacation playground of the rich. If you've seen The Crown, Princess Margaret goes to the island, so you see her on an island living life. She goes to Mystique. She has a place there in real life. She did. And this is Mick Jagger shows up. So it's kind of packed with a lot of fun celebrities, but the peaceful retreat really soon changes. It has a dark side, and Willie Mae is kind of the perfect person to see these discrepancies between the help and the rich people, or how we're hand-holding to make the princesses stay fun, even though she's like us. And there's also a good mother-daughter relationship, because part of it's told through her two daughters' perspectives. It's a great summer read. There's a lot of cocktails and scandals included. And then next is Scoundrel by Sarah Weinman. If you're a true crime fan, this is perfect for you. It's about a man named Edgar Smith in the 60s. He was in prison, sentenced to death for the murder of a teenage girl, but he struck up a correspondence with William F. Buckley, who is the founder of the National Review. He somehow convinced him that he was not guilty. And so Buckley really went to bat for him and ultimately helped to get him out of prison. It's a really bizarre tale about mid-century America. A lot of like justice and prison reform and civil rights are sewn up in this story as well. But ultimately, it's about the women that this man wronged and his time in and out of prison, and ultimately another crime that was committed. Sarah actually did talk to the main subject before he passed away. So that's another element of interest. And it just feels like a really new approach to true crime. So if you're a true crime fan, Sarah Weinman's the way to go always. And then, so now these are ones that are coming out very soon or in July, so you can get your hands on them. Next is Counterfeit by Kirsten Chen. So this is for fans of Hustlers or Crazy Rich Asians. There's a major TV deal for this one, so you'll probably hear a lot more about it. It's two women, Ava, who kind of plays it safe. She's a Chinese American lawyer, and Winnie is her old college roommate from mainland China. She's very enigmatic, she can't really understand her. But Winnie now enters back into Ava's life 20 years later because she needs some help. She wants to help import near exact replicas of luxury handbags, and she needs someone with a US passport to help her, someone they wouldn't expect. It's really surprising and sharply comedic, and there's a good feminist caper at the heart. So, and there's handbags. So if you're a fan of that, there's a lot of levels to enjoy it. Next is More Than You'll Ever Know by Katie Gutierrez. This is a debut. I know Laura told me that the library is very interested in this book, so hopefully you can get your hands on a copy very soon. But this is a dual timeline book. So we have 1985. Lorraine Rivera marries a man in Mexico City, even though she's already married to a man in Laredo, Texas. She splits her time between the two, and then there is a murder. One of the husbands has killed the others. He's arrested for it. And then it goes to 2017, where a true crime writer has learned about this and is very intrigued how a woman could get away with it, especially if she has kids. And the more she gets to know her, the more she realizes the story might not be what it seems. There's a lot of drama, and if you're a true crime lover and you love Scoundrel, this has a really it's fiction, but it has a really interesting conversation about this obsession with true crime, and especially like women who do it because they are a little bit on the outskirts of crimes. So anyway, this one's a really fun one. And then next, By Her Own Design by Piper Hughley. So this is a historical fiction read, but it's a very important story. There's a lot of buzz for this one. It's about Anne Lowe. She was a Black woman who designed and created the really famous wedding dress worn by Jackie Kennedy in 1953. But she was so famous to not be really known, but she is kind of getting her comeuppance and learning more about her. There's several articles, but this is her story. She had a really hard childhood. She grew up in Jim Crow, Alabama at like 12. She married an older man, and he was an alcoholic and abusive. And so she gets a chance and she takes it and she runs away. And she becomes one of the most famous dress and wedding makers out there. She's sold from coast to coast, but she's not compensated the same as other people. But it just tells her story. I'm very happy that her story is getting recognition that it deserves. And then next is On Rotation. This is a little bit later in June by Charlene Obobi. Charlene is one of the most crazy talented people I know. She is a physician. She's a working physician. This is her debut novel, and she is a cartoonist. So if you go to Shirley Whirl MD on Instagram, you can see she's done a lot of great things. This is a romance, but it's got a whole other level to it. There's a story about this perfect immigrant daughter. She's got it all, and when she loses it, she has to realize for herself what she wants, but also there's a little romance tied in there as well. And if you're a fan of like female friendships, that's in this story as well. It's not just a pure romance, and it's got a little crossover appeal, so teens might like it as well. And then just quickly, last, I want to tell you about Our Gin by Diane McKinney Whetstone. Diane has written so many critically acclaimed novels, including Tempest Rising, Blues Dancing. And in this book, we have a story about the Gin, which is short for sexagenarian. It's an upscale 55 plus community in Philadelphia in the suburbs. And we have this group of Black residents who get together and kind of just like line dance and debate politics and smoke weed and have fun. And of course, drink a lot of wine. But between all of this fun that they have, there are some secrets between them, and there's a lot of scars and tenderness. And so as they go into that, they have to really decide, like, maybe this is not the end of their life. Maybe this is something they can continue to live and discover new things about themselves. So there's a lot of book club potential and a lot of different friendships in there as well, a lot to discuss, and tales of life after retirement. So that's all I have. And that one comes out in July. So it's a little further out, but I wanted to give you a taste. And thank you so much.
Thanks, Lainey. Thanks so much. Okay. Up next, we have Annie Mays. Annie, what was your favorite childhood book and why?
So I've been sitting here listening to all these wonderful ones, which I kind of want to go back and reread them. But my favorite childhood book was The Westing Game. I've always really liked mysteries. I read it till the cover fell off. I just thought it was so clever and thoroughly enjoyable. And it was a Newbery winner, I think. So I like to think my 12-year-old self had really good taste. But yeah, so The Westing Game. But thank you so much for having me and for letting me be part of this amazing group of people. And I hope that you've all heard about a million books that you want to read, and I hope that I add some more to that list. I have the first few titles I'm talking about are all available now, and then I have many titles that are going to be coming out over the next few months. So in case you're planning out your calendar for book clubs or what have you, you can have a preview of future titles. But first up is Lucky Turtle by Bill Rohrbach. 16-year-old Sindra Zoller is sent to a reform camp in Montana. She has committed a pretty severe crime, but she's a very privileged white girl, and so she does not get the same punishment as the young men of color who committed the crime with her. While at this reform camp, she is transfixed by a man named Lucky, a young man. They're around the same age. And they fall in love and they run away. They think that they can live in the Rocky Mountains on Lucky's knowledge of the outdoors. That's a wonderful youthful fantasy. It doesn't end up happening. They are caught, and then circumstances, their naivete, where they are in life, the color of Lucky's skin, all keep them apart for decades. Lucky goes to prison. Sindra becomes trapped in a relationship where she is cosseted and carefully surveilled by her partner. They dream of finding each other because Lucky is the only man that she has ever fully trusted and fully seen her for who she is. This got many starred reviews in trade publications, and it's for readers of Richard Russo, Jane Smiley, or John Irving. Jackie and Me has been a huge fan favorite that I've spoken about to librarians. Louis Bayard is the author. He wrote The Pale Blue Eye, which is a really great book also, published by Harper Collins, I think. But this book brings us the story of debutante Jacqueline Bouvier in 1951. She's young and rebellious and eager to break free from her domineering mother, and she meets Jack Kennedy, who is very busy with his own pursuits. Wink. And he encourages his best friend Lem Billings to court Jackie on his behalf. Lem and Jack were best friends in real life. So this is historical fiction, although it is heavy on the fiction because Lewis said that was just more fun to write. But it's really essentially the story of Lem and Jackie's relationship and their friendship and how they devoted their lives to Jack at their own expense. This has received multiple starred reviews. I think it's going to be a perfect summer read. A story about love and sacrifice, friendship, and betrayal. Honor is from best-selling author Thridi Umrigar. It's the moving story of two Indian women and the courage they inspire in each other. It was a Reese Witherspoon book club pick. It's for fans of Etaf Rum's A Woman Is No Man. It's heartbreaking and perceptive story of these two women trying to navigate how to live in a country where really horrible things keep happening to women, but it's a country that they want more than anything to call their own and to love and to claim as their home. Booklist, which is a trade publication, called it an intense, incisive, and very timely drama. Small Odysseys is published in partnership with Selected Shorts, the NPR show, in honor of its 35th anniversary. It's a collection of 35 never-before-published stories from people such as Carmen Maria Machado, Dave Eggers, Elizabeth Strout, Jess Walter, Lauren Groff. There's something for everyone in this incredible collection, and it makes the argument that time and again, it is stories that save us. Metropolis is really fun. It's by B.A. Shapiro, who wrote The Art Forger, which I also would highly recommend if you like historical fiction. This is contemporary. It's set in a Metropolis storage warehouse in Cambridge, Massachusetts. When a harrowing accident happens, was it really an accident? It is told in multiple narratives by the 6 mysterious characters who rent units in or are connected to the storage facility. It's a very rich cast of diverse and fascinating people. It culminates in an exciting and very satisfying end for fans of Janelle Brown, Megan Abbott, Laura Lippman. Next up is The Poet's House, which I will say I did not originally come to this book. It was not something that I was immediately drawn to, and then it kept getting amazing reviews, incredible blurbs, and so I read it, and I'm so glad it did. Carla is in her 20s. She's unsure of the direction her life is taking, and she ends up working for Viridian, who is a lauded poet. And she finds herself in this community of writers and artists and literary people in this world that she has nothing to do with, she has no idea about, but she can't get enough of it. She's fascinated by it. So ultimately, this is a meditation on art, how it's both transformative, on the ways in which it can be leveraged, a woman's place in the art world. It's really funny. I think it will be for fans of writers and lovers and the female persuasion. Next up is Calling for a Blanket Dance, which I absolutely am a huge fan of. It's a debut novel. It's an own voices story. Oscar Hoquea lives in the community that he writes about. It's told in a series of voices, and it takes us into the life of Ever Gumasadl through multi-generational perspectives, starting with his mother. Every chapter is from a different member of his family and it follows his life. So he's connected to every chapter, starting with his mom, and then the last chapter is his own voice, going from when, even before his birth, to him as an adult, portraying himself and looking back at his life. But it's incredibly moving. It's such an engaging story. I'm so excited for Oscar. I love, discovering new authors is such a wonderful moment. And I can't wait to see what he continues to do. And it also sheds light on a community that not a lot is written about, this Native American community in Oklahoma. The Complicities would be for fans of The Glass Hotel or O. William. After her husband Alan's decades-long financial fraud are exposed, Suzanne's very wealthy fancy life shatters. Alan goes to prison, Suzanne files for divorce, begins to create a new life and identity, and then Alan is released early, and the many people whose lives that he has ruined demand restitution. So this really focuses on who's to blame, if she knew what was going on, if she didn't, is she responsible at all? So there's a lot to discuss in this book. Smart Brevity is from the people who founded Politico and Axios. Back when they were reporters for the Washington Post, they learned through web tracking a very eye-opening fact that most people back in the day, when you had to click from page to page to page to continue reading an article, most people didn't click past the first page. So the founding guiding principle for everything that they do is brevity is confidence and length is fear. So Smart Brevity is really their book. It's a system and a strategy that will teach anybody who works with words how to think more sharply, communicate more crisply, and save readers time. You are not a shitty parent. You're not. But the best-selling author of How to Stop Losing Your Shit with Your Kids has a very important message for parents and caregivers of all types who want to maybe do better and feel like they're kind of frazzled and maybe not doing their best. The secret to being a more effective, more empathetic person and compassionate person and raising happy, resilient kids is practicing compassion for yourself. Carla Naumburg gives tangible steps for how to use each help reduce anxiety, trust instincts, move past any guilt that you might be feeling, and become a calmer, more confident person for happier kids, happier adults. I'm very excited about Ghetto Gastro presents Black Power Kitchen. Ghetto Gastro is a Bronx-based creative and culinary collective, delivers highly visual manifesto for living and eating to stimulate the mind, body, and heart in a book that promotes Black excellence through recipes, art, and thought-provoking text. It gives readers 75 recipes, mostly plant-based, more than 150 photographs throughout, thought-provoking contributions on topics ranging from the work of Black mothers to the importance of resistance and rebellion. This is an incredibly powerful introductory book from some very important voices in the food and design world. So we live in a time of divisiveness. Much has been written about our polarized media, social bubbles, intractable biases, and now award-winning journalist Bastian Berbner circles the world to find a very different narrative. He's collected true stories that prove it is possible to mend even the most fiercest of divides. In Arizona, he has a former neo-Nazi befriend a Black parole officer. In Germany, an older couple dread the arrival of their new Roma neighbors, but are moved upon meeting them to offer help and become strong supporters. In Ireland, there are friendships that change the world when a gay rights activist overturns a conservative mailman's homophobia, and together they help sway public opinion to legalize gay marriage. With added historic and sociological research, Berbner gets to the root of what pushes people apart and shows that we can dissolve divisions by simply meeting face to face. I think this could be very essential reading and uplifting reading for anyone who aspires to live without hate. The Miracle of Salt, or something very different. If you like to cook, you know how important salt is. And James Beard award-winning author Naomi Dogood takes the same approach of researcher, storyteller, and chef that garnered praise and fandom for her previous books, Burma and The Taste of Persia. But this time focuses on the single most important ingredient. Through stories, instructions, and over 100 recipes, Dogood illuminates the many foods born from the power of salt and offers home-friendly recipes that highlight the nuances of salt's flavors. Somewhere Sisters is such an interesting nonfiction book. Identical twins Isabella and Ha were born in Vietnam and raised on opposite sides of the world, each knowing little about the other's existence until they were reunited as teenagers. Award-winning journalist Erika Hayasaki spent years interviewing the girls, the birth families, the adopted families, and tells this incredible story from all of their perspectives, challenging conceptions about adoption and what it means to give a child a good life. This is for readers of All You Can Ever Know or American Baby. And finally, Inciting Joy. If you have not read Ross Gay's The Book of Delights, please do yourself a favor and read it. The Book of Delights is an amazing book. It is very regularly adopted into colleges where people are using it to start conversations. And in this book, Inciting Joy, there are 13 essays where Ross Gay considers the joy that we incite when we care for each other, especially through life's inevitable hardships. He explores how we can practice recognizing that connection, how we can practice how crucially to grow it in an era in which divides us garner so much attention. This really offers an alternative, what might be possible if we turn our attention to what brings us together, to what we share, to what we love. That is it for me. So thank you for your time, and please get in touch if you have any questions. I appreciate you being here.
Thanks, Annie. Thanks so much. Okay, next on our list, we have Melissa Nicholas.
Right.
Melissa, there you are. Melissa is from Hachette Book Group. And Melissa, please tell us, what is your favorite book when you were a child and why?
Right. Listen, I admire my colleagues that they have some very honorable choices, but I might go to a little racier place. So my grandpa, when I used to visit them in Dunkirk, New York in the summer, used to take me to the local US News and World Reports where I would convince him to let me buy mass markets that I shouldn't have been reading, like Judith Krantz and Princess Daisy, things like that. And my grandpa would say, Melissa, are you sure you should be reading this? And I would say, yes. And so those are some of my fondest early memories of being a fifth grader that shouldn't have been reading a lot of those books, but I did, and it was fun. And I stand by it. So hopefully you'll forgive me for my racy story. And so let's talk about a selection of fiction titles that stretch, that are out now and stretch into fall. And then we'll move into a little sip of nonfiction selections and one goofy or golfy choice. More on that momentarily. So The Island. Oh, this is a thriller you want to discuss and discuss and discuss even more. The trick of the eye taking place on the cover is an indication of the suspense to come. A newly remarried widow takes a vacation with his wife and his kids, and the kids are tiring of their new stepmother, you know, like teenagers do. And then they discover an island, which is off limits to outside visitors. And the family talks their way onto the ferry, taking a chance on an adventure far from the reaches of iPhones and Instagram. And as soon as they set foot on the island, it's run by a tightly knit clan of locals, everything feels very wrong. Then a shocking accident propels them from an unsettling situation into an absolute nightmare. And the stepmom and kids are separated from the dad. They are forced to escape alone, seconds ahead of their pursuers. So if you want to stay up all night, this is the book for you, and talk about it with your friends. On to, let's talk about With Prejudice. It's possible that Robin Peguero is the most perfect human to write this highly suspenseful, complex debut legal thriller. Robin is a homicide prosecutor. He's worked in Miami, now he's working in DC, but he spent a lot of time in courtrooms. He studied at Harvard Law. Now he's turned his powers to writing a thriller that's heart-pounding and thought-provoking. We meet an ambitious young female prosecutor whose political fortunes depend on using her very limited evidence to secure a conviction in this murder trial. But the criminal justice system is complicated and everyone has a story, especially the jury. Scott Turow, Harlan Coben, Julie Dahl, Joey Day, book reviewers around the world are flipping out about Robin's debut thriller. So keep your eyes out on Robin and remember this very special moment when you heard about him. More to come from Robin. How to Be Eaten. And although this novel deals with disturbing issues such as abuse, abortion, sickness, and heartbreak, Edelman writes with a light touch and fills these pages with dark humor. It's present day New York City. 5 women meet in a basement support group to process their traumas that reimagine classic fairy tale characters as these modern women. Though the modern women start out wary of one another, they judge each other's stories, they gradually begin to realize they have more in common than they suppose. What really brought them here? What secrets will they reveal? Is it too late for them to rescue each other? Thought-provoking take on what happens after happily ever after, and great for discussion. Half Blown Rose. Lisa is a wonderfully thoughtful person, which is very easy to see in the characters she writes. I think she is groovy. Taylor Jenkins Reid thinks she is too, and so does Roxane Gay. This newest novel just hit New Canaan's library shelves on Tuesday. And this transporting read takes us to Paris. And Lisa brings the culture of the city vividly alive. This is a story about a woman named Vincent who's estranged from her husband, and she's like lost herself in a teaching job at a modern art museum. She makes new friends. Maybe there's a young paramour. There's definitely long starry walks. There's music. Oh, and Lisa is like wonderful at weaving music into her books. And what will Vincent do? Reserve now to find out. B&N's book club is on deck to read this as well as many other book clubs. These Impossible Things. Oh, this Salma, she writes with nuance and beauty. This book has it all. Womanhood, sex, family, desire, religion, and brings a much needed perspective to the Muslim and Arab experience. We follow 3 childhood friends, now on the precipice of true adulthood, and whether they can find a way back to each other as they reconcile their faith, family, and tradition with their own needs and desires. This is a timely, fresh, and relatable read. Also perfect for book clubs. Marie Claire and the Skim book clubs are diving into it. Yours should too. That's a strong suggestion. Back to something that's like going to scare the pants off you, if I'm allowed to say scare the pants off you. This is a genre-defying thriller about a father who's desperate to salvage what's left of his family, even if it means a descent into violence. You see, he's buried in debt due to his daughter's illness, and his marriage is on the brink. And so to pay for things, he reluctantly takes a job as a hitman. And he's good at it. So he decides he's going to take on one final job for a Mexican cartel. And well, again, I'm inviting you wholeheartedly to read the book. It's a panoramic odyssey for fans of S.A. Crosby's Southern Noir, also fans of Stephen Graham Jones and Silvia Moreno Garcia. Oh, a perfect summer read. Kimber Lalasa Roby returns with a perfect story of friendship. She writes about 4 friends who've known each other since they were small children. They grew up in different neighborhoods, but they attended the same church. And while they attended different colleges, they always stayed in touch. Now they're 40 and they're still best friends, but their lives couldn't be more different. So it's a new standalone from Kimber Lalasa. Again, like a wonderful end of summer read. Sorry, we're just going to do Ithaca quickly. This is the story of Penelope, the famed wife of Odysseus. Beyond Ithaca's shores, the whims of gods dictate the wars of men, but on the Isle, it's the choices of the abandoned women and their goddesses that will change the course of the world. This is perfect for fans of Circe and Ariadne and any kind of myth retellings. Then on to Less is Lost, which is the novel of my heart, my head, everything on this list. Andrew Sean Greer won the Pulitzer Prize for Less in 2018. And now Arthur Less, the character, is a moderately successful author. He spent a glorious amount of time finding himself in Less as he raced around the world, avoiding a terrible breakup and all around malaise. Less is Lost finds Less on the road again, in the this time in the US, kind of dealing with a strange relationship with his honey bunch. And I cannot wait for September so you can all read it. It's a profound and joyous novel about the enigma of life in America, the riddle of love, and the stories we tell along the way. Less is, oh, I wish he could be my best friend in real life. Okay, now, the sip of nonfiction. Just threw a little golf book in here because I'm afraid I'm going to lose some of my readers this summer to golf. And Rick Riley's back with his humor and his love of golf. And, you know, I thought you should know. Some more nonfiction. Agent Josephine. Prior to World War II, Josephine Baker was a music hall diva renowned for her singing, her dancing, her beauty, and her sexuality. She was the most highly paid performer in Europe, and when the Nazis seized her adopted city, she was banned from the stage. Yet instead of returning to America, she vowed to stay and fight the Nazi evil, and overnight she went from a performer to a resistance spy. Readers will be drawn to the familiar name, but confronted with a vastly different story than you've read about in other biographies. Very excited about this. Coming next month. Raising Lazarus. Beth Macy is the best-selling author of Dope Sick, the inspiration for Hulu's dramatic miniseries. This tells the story of the everyday heroes fighting to stem the tide of the drug overdose in communities that are too often left to fend for themselves. It's a complex story of public health, big pharma, dark money, politics, race, and class that is a must-read for all Americans. I just want to say, I don't have a slide for this. Oh, sorry. Yes, I thought that my friends in New Canaan, Connecticut would like to know that Jan Wenner is writing a book. So fun. September. Stay tuned. The book that I don't have a slide for is Stacy Schiff's The Revolutionary Samuel Adams, and I wanted my history buffs out there to know that instead of hosting Thanksgiving this November, you can curl up with a big book about Samuel Adams. We're looking forward to that. Also going to toast to Hachette's best-selling authors. I hope that they delight you regularly. And if you have questions, this is how to find me. Thank you for listening. Thank you, Laura.
Thank you so much. That was great, Melissa. Always great books from Hachette. The next is Golda from W.W. Norton. And hello, Golda, how are you?
Hello,
and what is your
Laura.
favorite book when you were a child and why?
So this is a super tough question, as I'm sure everybody can identify with. I was obsessed with the Noelle Streatfeild books because I loved reading about people in the arts world, even though I didn't want to do it myself. And then, of course, Lainey reminded me of Anne of Green Gables and Ellen Montgomery, and all of my books are in boxes right now, but I also have multiple copies of Anne of Green Gables. So I will pull up my slideshow. So thank you everybody for staying with us tonight. I'm Golda. I handle library marketing for Norton. I have a mix of fiction and nonfiction titles, and some of them are out now, and some of them are coming out later this year. Okay, starting with fiction. The Immortal King Rao by Vahini Vara is a debut novel with elements of speculative and dystopian fiction. The story is narrated by Athena Rao, who is sitting in a prison cell. The government has been replaced by corporations, and people are no longer citizens, they are shareholders, and their worth is determined by their social capital. It turns out that it was her father, King Rao, who created the technology that led to this. Athena tells King's story from growing up on a coconut grove in India to moving to the USA for grad school, and his advances in computers and technology that changed the world. But why is Athena in prison? And what happened to King Rao? Well, you have to read the book to find out. The New York Times gave the book a fantastic review, and it has been chosen for the Vox Book Club. And Vahini will join the Vox Book Club for a discussion on June 30th if you want to check that out. Big Girl by Mecca Jamila Sullivan is a debut Own Voices novel set in Harlem in the 90s. 8-year-old Malaya hates when her mother drags her to Weight Watchers meetings. She'd rather paint alone in her bedroom or enjoy street food with her father. For Malaya, the pressures of her mostly white Upper East Side prep school are relentless, as are the expectations passed down from her painfully proper mother and sharp-tongued grandmother. The novel explores food addiction and diet culture with nuance and levity, interrogating the intellectual, emotional, and bodily lives of young Black women contending with disordered eating. Jacqueline Woodson said, "Sullivan has given us a gift as big, beautiful, and complicated as living itself, filled with everyday people who show us the love and struggle of what it means to be inside bodies that don't always fit with the outside world." And we're thrilled to have a new book from Andrea Barrett. Natural History is a collection of 6 interconnected stories spanning from the Civil War era up to now. There are some characters that show up from her previous works, but you can come to this brand new and not feel like you're missing anything. Andrea Barrett always weaves in nature and science, and she looks at the ways women's lives have changed across the decades. We are also reissuing her National Book Award-winning novel Ship Fever in paperback, and that would also be a great choice for book clubs who like historical fiction. And another one that we're thrilled about is Lydia Millett. Her new novel, Dinosaurs, comes out in October. The main character, Gil, just wants to be useful in the world, and he's kind of like a Ted Lasso character. He gets involved in the lives of the family next door to his new house in Arizona. And these are characters that you want to be friends with, or like Gil, you'll want to help them out. Lydia Millett describes human moments and behaviors in prose both funny and kind, as she illustrates the ways our lives are at once insignificant, but also profoundly important to the web of humanity. This should appeal to fans of slice of life novels like Still Life by Sarah Winman, or fans of the authors Rachel Cusk and Dana Spiotta. The House in the Orchard is one of the lead novels from Tin House for the fall. This is historical fiction set on a country estate in England during 2 time periods, the late Victorian era and immediately after World War II. Brooks writes about the time and place with superb attention to period detail, fascinating characters, and vivid prose. This twisty Gothic tale of corrupted innocence asks what it means to really know the truth. The book has a strong atonement feeling to it, and it should appeal to fans of historical fiction and dark secrets. And now I'm switching over to nonfiction. Fly Girl is the memoir that Anne Hood's fans have been waiting for. Anne grew up in a small town, and getting a job as a flight attendant was her way to see the world. She worked for TWA in the late 70s and early 80s when there was still some glamour to flying, but there was also a lot of change. She carved Chateaubriand in the first-class cabin, found romance on layovers in London and Lisbon, and walked over 1 million miles in high heels, smiling as she served thousands of passengers. She talks about how the job empowered her, despite its roots in sexist standards. Packed with funny, moving, and surprising stories of life as a flight attendant, Fly Girl captures the nostalgia and magic of air travel at its height. The Year of the Horses by Courtney Malm. So she lives in Litchfield County, so she's a local author. When Courtney was trying to find her way out of depression, she turned to riding horses. This memoir captures her journey and the horses that guide her physically and emotionally on a new path forward. She also includes anecdotes about other horseback riding women in history. You don't have to be a horse lover to identify with the way the relationship between animals and humans can help to heal the mind and heart. Boston.com chose it as a best book of the summer, and it was recommended on Good Morning America and in Vanity Fair. One of the things that finding other people who like reading or joining a book club can give you is a sense of belonging. In his new book called Belonging, psychologist Jeffrey Cohen applies his and others' groundbreaking research to the myriad problems of communal existence and offers concrete solutions for improving daily life. We all feel a deep need to belong, but sometimes we accidentally behave in ways that threaten others' sense of belonging. He talks about the small acts that establish connection, brief activities such as reflecting on our core values, and several other practices that Cohen defines as situation crafting that have been shown to lessen political polarization, improve motivation and performance in school and work, combat racism in our communities, enhance health and well-being, and unleash the potential in ourselves and in our relationships. Belonging is essential for managers, educators, parents, administrators, caregivers, and everyone who wants those around them to thrive. And then I have another book from a Connecticut author, The Other Side of Prospect by Nicholas Dawidoff. One New Haven summer evening in 2006, a retired grandfather was shot point blank by a young stranger. A hasty police investigation culminated in innocent 16-year-old Bobby being sentenced to prison for 38 years. After 9 years in prison, with the help of a crusading lawyer, Bobby was finally set free. His subsequent struggles with the memories of prison and his heartbreaking efforts to reconnect with family and community show the challenges that formerly incarcerated people face upon re-entry into society. New Haven native and acclaimed author Nicholas Dawidoff tells the history of the community of New Hallville, the dramatic story of the murder itself, the police department's search for the killer, and the false confession, and the court battle to free Bobby. And in the moving final part, Dawidoff describes Bobby's heartbreaking re-entry into society as he struggles without the structure and relative safety of prison and seeks to reconnect with his family and community. Dawidoff spent 8 years interviewing people and reporting on this deeper story, and he really shows the injustice and what the story reveals about the enduring legacies of social and economic disparity. So I hope you'll find something to check out from our list, whether it's fiction or nonfiction. And thank you all so much for listening and staying with us tonight.
Thank you so much, Golda. All right, our next and last, and I thank Samantha for waiting to be the last to speak tonight. Samantha comes to us from MacMillan. So what is your favorite book when you were a child?
I thought deep and hard about this, and I am going with Mandy by Julie Andrews, which is just the most magical book. And I think it was probably my first chapter book, and I reread it a few years ago, and I read it in like an hour. So definitely pick it up because it's fast and magical and amazing. Okay, so now here's my little spiel before I begin. Thank you all so much for staying. I'm so excited to be here. I couldn't choose. So for speed dating, I was thinking of doing, everyone could choose a genre they wanted, and then I had too many books and I couldn't narrow it down now. So I'm going to speed through this. You're getting 100 million books right now. Not actually, but a lot. And I'll go fast, I promise. It's dinner time for everyone. So first, we're starting with more general fiction, historical fiction. The first book you should see on the handout is Billy Starr's Book of Sorries. This is a very witty yet serious story set in small town Indiana about Jenny Newson, who is the queen of bad decisions. so much so that her daughter Billy has filled a book with all of Jenny's wrongdoings. This is great for fans of Evie, Drake Starts Over, and Nothing to See Here. Next is Hester, which is one of my most anticipated and a beautiful cover. This is a vivid reimagining of the woman who inspired the Scarlet Letter, great for fans of The Lost Apothecary and Hamnet. It is a hypnotizing story of a young immigrant woman grappling with the country's complicated past and the ways in which women who are different are often looked at as dangerous. Next is The Picture Bride. This is Pachinko meets the island of sea women. It is a captivating journey of a young Korean picture bride and her immigrant experience in 1918 Hawaii. And How Not to Drown in a Glass of Water is from the author of the beloved and many award-winning Dominicana. This time we have Kara, a woman in her mid-50s who is forced back into the job market after the Great Recession. As she meets with a job counselor, she begins to recount her life story, and those stories unfold and are beautiful. For Treasures of the Sky is a beautiful debut that is already on sale. It is set against the backdrop of the Chinese Exclusion Act about a girl fighting to claim her place in the 1880s American West. Is perfect for fans of Homegoing, Outlawed, and Red at the Bone. And now I have a few more debuts. First up is The Resemblance. This is an atmospheric and absolutely enthralling campus thriller for fans of the secret history and the likeness. It's set at the University of Georgia when a fraternity brother steps into a crosswalk and is killed by an oncoming car. There are a bunch of witnesses and they all agree on two things. One, the driver looks identical to the victim, and the driver had a smile on his face the whole time. Next is The Net Beneath Us, which is a debut about family, nature, and forging a path forward for readers of The Great Alone, Where the Crawdads Sing, Wild, and Migrations by Charlotte McGonaghy. The Bartender's Cure. This is also one of my favorites, and not just because it has cocktail recipes to start every chapter, but it is a love letter to bars and the communities that they provide. The read-alikes for this one are amazing. Some of my other favorites, Sweet Bitter, Writers and Lovers, and Luster. And Dirt Creek. This is a story of the disappearance of a 12-year-old girl in rural Australia and the secrets that come out as her best friend and a detective work to find her. It's a great read for fans of Blacktop Wasteland and We Begin at the End. And now I have some more mysteries. First one is The Best Friend. For any fans of the Mitford Murders historical mystery series, this is from the same author, and this one is a standalone mystery. It's a perfect book club pick for fans of The Perfect Nanny and The Push. Next is Secrets of the Nile. This is a fun little nod to Agatha Christie, and it's the next in the Lady Emily series, where Lady Emily is sent to Egypt to investigate a crime that leads back to the era of the pharaohs, and she has to decide who she is with, who hates their host the most to murder them. Lavender House is the start to a new mystery series set in 1950 San Francisco, and this is my perfect little selling point for it. It is Queer Knives Out meets Murder on the Orient Express. And the last mystery here is Carolina Moonset. This is a standalone suspense from the beloved author of the Nils Shapiro series. This time we're in South Carolina with a man taking care of his sick father, some deadly secrets, and murder, of course. And now I have the romance. First up, this is a hilarious one. It is Mistakes Were Made. This is Honey Girl because a one-night stand leads to something more. Sex Education because it is a completely laugh-out-loud spicy story. And The Roommate because it is all things raunchy and steamy about a girl whose one-night stand just so happens to be her friend's mother. Next is The Makeup Test. This is One to Watch meets Beach Read, and it is the perfect debut rom-com for every literary nerd. There is a sexy game of Scrabble, cardigans with elbow patches, and the best literary references out there. Marlowe Banks redesigned. When life doesn't fit, it's time to try something new. This is an emotional, feel-good rom-com about a New York City costume designer who heads to LA to hide from her failures. The Lost Witch is from the author of the very magical and amazing The Orphan Witch. This one is a tale of contemporary fantasy, romance, and Irish mythology. It alternates between 1922 and 2022, and it also takes place on a cursed island. Built to Last, I am calling all HGTV fans like myself. This one has all the fun renovating trope, but it's also a second chance at love for two childhood sweethearts. It's very sweet, and it's Erin Hahn's adult debut. She's a YA author. The Bodyguard is absolutely hilarious. It's the perfect summer read. Catherine Center is in my top 10 funniest people I've met in my entire life. This is about a woman who looks more like a kindergarten teacher than someone who could kill you with a wine bottle opener. She is a bodyguard, and she just got hired to protect superstar actor and the stupidly sexy Jack. And the Sizzle Paradox. This is the Kiss Quotient meets Love Potion number 9, and it is the ultimate sexy best friends to lovers story, and it takes place in grad school. And we have a twofer here, Bad Girl Reputation and Good Girl Complex, for everyone looking for a sexy second chance series about two exes who can't stay away from each other. It is here. Bad Girl Reputation is the sequel to Good Girl Complex, with Hot Girl Summer coming next. And it is about a former bad girl returning home, trying to stay away from her ex-boyfriend. Let me scroll on my handout. Now we have nonfiction. First is American Demon. This is amazing true crime all about Elliot Ness's last case, tracking down and capturing a serial killer terrorizing Cleveland. Madly Deeply, I love this one. Alan Rickman was a beloved actor and person on and off the screen, and this is his diary over the span of 25 years before he died. It takes a deep look at his life and all of the relationships he formed, while also just showcasing how amazing of a person he was. And Kate Winslet wrote the foreword for it. Friends, Lovers, and the Big Terrible Thing. This is another celebrity. Obviously, I am embarrassed to say I'm not a Friends watcher, but I am so excited for this. It is Matthew Perry's memoir, and it's behind the scenes of his life, but also his opening up about his struggles with addiction. It's very, very intimate and very moving, and he talks about his crush on Jennifer Aniston, which is also really fun. Uphill, Jamil Hill writes a bold memoir about being a journalist and former ESPN Sports Center co-anchor. It's a deep look at the obstacles she had to overcome and the journey she had to take to get to where she is now. Starry Messenger. This is a cosmic view of humanity that examines how much we have in common instead of looking at all the little things that seem to divide us in a world that can feel very polarizing. My 7 Black Fathers is written out of a deep appreciation for the Black male experience. It is an essential and affirmative new take on the meaning of race and family in America. Ma and Me is a memoir of a Cambodian woman caught between her identity as a gay woman and the love and life debt she owes her mother. Unmasked is a memoir of investigating America's toughest cold cases from the detective who found the Golden State Killer. Paul Holes has a huge hit podcast. It is so good. And his fans even gave him his own hashtag hot for Holes. And I'm almost done. This is the final end. We're at magical realism fantasy. First up here is Other Birds. Sarah Addison Allen is such a beloved author, and this is another enchanting journey of magical realism about a woman who comes to a small island off the coast of South Carolina. It has all the beauty and magic of the Lost Apothecary, the Midnight Library, and the Night Circus. The Wilder Women is from the author of Beasts of Extraordinary Circumstances, and is about 2 sisters, one who can see the future and one who can see memories people have from the past. It's overall a motherhood story, but the magical realism is so vivid in it. The Book Eaters is perfect for fans of library at Mount Char for its messed up family dynamics and creepy library. V.E. Schwab's Vicious for its snappy and dark look at the cost of being extraordinary, and The 10,000 Doors of January for its story about stories and the power they hold. It's a dark and fantastical debut about a family who consumes books for sustenance. Book of Night is from the mega popular YA author. This is her adult debut, and it's about a world of shadow magic where everyone's shadows can be altered for entertainment and cosmetic purposes, but are also used to increase power and influence. It's a super cool premise and a beautifully created fantasy world with amazing characters. Just Like Home is My Sister the Serial Killer meets The Haunting of Hill House. I don't think I need to say any more about that one. in the Middle of Hickory Lane is the next charming novel from Midnight at the Blackbird Cafe author. It's about two women with painful past. It's for fans of magical realism like that of Sarah Addison Allen, Alice Hoffman, and Joanne Harris. And we're at the end. I have Under the Whispering Door. I can't give a presentation and not include something by TJ Klune because all of his books are amazing. This is a heartwarming story about hot tea, fresh scones, and the dead that are passing through to the afterlife. This has Wallace, who has just died, but isn't yet ready to abandon his life, and a ferryman who sets out to help Wallace live one more time. And that's all. I did it all. Thank you all so much for listening.
Great, Samantha. Thank you so much. All right. Let's see. Hi. So, hey, everybody, we made it. Everyone, we made it through. Thank you so much, especially to the publishers. Wow, what a lot you presented to us. And I thank you so much. To everyone who has watched, thank you for sticking around. Please let your friends know that this has been recorded. So if anyone is interested in catching anything that they missed or want to go back over some of the descriptions of the books, please, we will have this up on our website soon. And so please tell your friends that we have lots of book choices for them. And if you ever want, if we don't have the book in our library, please let us know. If you want it, we can get it for you. That is not a problem. And also, if you want to get a copy of it for yourself or your own bookshelf, there is always Elm Street Books. They would be very happy to get you the books as well. Again, thank you again, everyone. I am so looking forward to next year that we will be in the new library, in the new auditorium, doing a real speed dating kind of book buzz. Thanks, everyone. Thank you again. Good night.